I had been looking for a new place for months. Most apartments were too expensive, too small, or in bad neighborhoods. Then I found it, a nice apartment on the 10th floor of a tall building. The price was low, but the landlord said it was because the lease was long. It sounded perfect. The first night was quiet, except for the sound of the elevator. It went up and down a lot, even late at night. I always hated the sound of elevators. By the third night, strange things started happening. I heard soft footsteps in the hallway, but when I checked, no one was there. My bathroom mirror was fogged up, even though I hadn't used the shower. The creepiest part was the sticky note on my fridge. I hadn't put it there. It said, "Welcome home." I stared at the note for a long time. My heart was racing as I tried to think of an explanation. Maybe the landlord left it? But why now? And why would he sneak into my apartment to do it? I decided to ignore it. I crumpled the note, tossed it in the trash, and locked my door. The next morning I woke up to a loud noise. It was like something heavy falling. I rushed out of bed and checked the apartment, but nothing was out of place. I opened the door to the hallway. It was empty, just like before. When I came back inside, the sticky note was back on the fridge. This time it said, "Why did you throw the note away?" I froze. My hands started to shake. The trash can was empty, no sign of the first note. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't the kind of person to believe in ghosts or curses, but this didn't feel normal. I grabbed my phone to call the landlord, but before I could dial, I noticed something. The bathroom door was open. I always closed it before bed. From the corner of my left eye, I saw someone was standing behind me. I spun around, heart racing, but no one was there. The room was empty, just like before. I laughed nervously, trying to convince myself it was all in my head. I put on some old W2S video and fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up, I forced myself to get ready for work, but the whole day felt off. My mind kept drifting back to the weird stuff that happened since I got here, the sticky notes and the open bathroom door. I told myself I'd check the apartment more carefully when I got home. By the time I returned, it was already dark. The hallway leading to my door felt unusually quiet, like the building was holding its breath or something. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Something was wrong. My keys weren't on the counter where I'd left them. A mug I used that morning was gone from the sink. Even my favorite hoodie, which I'd tossed on the couch, was missing. I searched the apartment, but the items were nowhere to be found. I stood in the middle of the living room trying to figure out what was happening. Was I losing my mind? That's when I noticed my bedroom door was open. I didn't remember leaving it that way. Slowly, I walked toward the room. My anxiety grew more and more with each step. When I reached the doorway, I stopped. In the corner of my bedroom, near the closet, was a shadow. It wasn't a regular shadow. It was too dark, too solid. It didn't move, even though the light from the hallway should have shifted it. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. My voice caught in my throat as I tried to say something, anything. Then, the shadow twitched. I didn't sleep that night. After the shadow twitched, I bolted out of the room and sat in the living room with every light on. I didn't go back into the bedroom. I didn't want to know if the shadow was still there. By morning, I was exhausted and scared out of my mind. I called my friend Martin and asked if I could crash at his place for the night. I didn't tell him the whole story, just that my apartment was giving me weird vibes. "Sure, man," he said, "or bring snacks." At Martin's, everything felt normal again. We played Xbox for hours, yelling at the screen when one of us lost. Then we switched to chess, where he crushed me 3 games in a row. We even found some old board games from his closet. For the first time in days, I felt like myself. "Why don't you just stay here a while?" Martin said as we packed up the games. I laughed, but I was tempted. "I might take you up on that." I slept on Martin's couch that night. It wasn't the most comfortable, but it felt safe. No shadows, no creepy notes, just the sound of his dog snoring in the corner. The next morning, I hesitated before going back to my apartment, but I couldn't avoid it forever. I had work clothes to grab and bills to pay. I thanked Martin, promised to come back soon, and headed home. The moment I opened my door, I froze. The place was a wreck. My couch was flipped over. The coffee table was on its side, and broken glass littered the floor. Chairs were scattered, and every drawer in the kitchen was open, utensils spilling out. The worst part? My bedroom door was wide open. I couldn't take it anymore. I was losing my mind. The apartment was a disaster, and I had no idea what was happening. I couldn't just ignore it. I called my landlord and demanded an explanation. When I finally reached him, his voice was shaky, almost like he was trying to avoid something. "Look," he said, "the reason the rent is so low is there's something in that apartment, something we can't get rid of. It's not human. People who lived there before either moved out or died. We don't know why, but it keeps happening every time someone tries to move in." I didn't know what to say. My heart was racing. "What do you mean? What is it?" He hesitated. "It's an apparition. It's like it's tied to the apartment, and it won't leave. If you hear a growl, a deep, low growl, get to the storage closet in the hallway. Lock the door. Do not come out until it's quiet." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was he serious? "You're telling me to hide in a closet?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I know it sounds crazy," he replied, "but it's the only thing that's kept people safe." I didn't know what to think. I had to see it for myself. That night, it happened. I was lying in bed, too scared to sleep, when I heard it. A low growl, almost like something was waking up. It was coming from the walls, from the floor, even from the ceiling. It was like the building itself was about to collapse. I froze. My body wouldn't move. Then I heard it again, a sound like nails scraping on a blackboard. It made my teeth ache. Then came the dripping sound. Slow. Steady. Like water hitting a cold floor, but there was no water. The growl rumbled again, louder this time. I didn't hesitate. I bolted for the hallway, my heart racing. I yanked open the storage closet door and slammed it shut behind me, locking the door with shaking hands. I crouched in the corner, pressing myself into the wall. The growl was getting closer. The pounding started, heavy, violent, like fists slamming into the door. Thump, thump, thump. I covered my ears, but the sound wouldn't stop. It was quiet for a few seconds. My heart was still racing, but the pounding had stopped. I slowly let out a breath, then I heard it. A soft meow. I froze. My cat was in the room with me. I quickly stood up and opened the closet door, hoping to find her. But what I saw wasn't my cat. It was a tall, dark figure. Its shape reminded me of Slender Man, but it had long, sharp claws and glowing red eyes. There was no nose, no mouth. It just stood there, motionless. I took a step back, my blood running cold. Then it did something strange. It raised one of its long clawed fingers and tapped on the wall. I blinked, confused. What was it doing? But then, something incredible happened. The tap started to make sense, and it was tapping in a pattern, Morse code. I remembered it from summer camp when I was 11. I hadn't thought about it in years, but suddenly the dots and dashes came back to me. The figure's message was simple. "I mean you no harm for now. I'm protecting you from him." I was so confused. "Protecting me from who?" I whispered. The figure tilted its head. Then it tapped out another message. "The landlord." I stood there, staring at the apparition, trying to make sense of everything. "Why are you protecting me?" I asked, my voice trembling. The figure tilted its head, as if considering my question. Then it tapped out another message in Morse code. "The landlord has been taking the people who lived here, doing monstrous things to them." I felt my heart drop. "What kind of things?" The tapping continued. "It starts with him gaslighting the tenant, making them think things are disappearing or that they're losing their mind. He messes with their apartment, taking things, making a mess. Then he takes them." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Takes them? What happens to them?" The figure's tapping was faster now, more urgent. "The last person who lived here, he stitched rabbit and horse parts to his face. The landlord has been testing a biopoison similar to cyanide on the tenants. No one survives." I felt my knees buckle, but I managed to stay standing. "So, those deaths, the ones people talked about, they weren't your fault?" The figure's red eyes glowed a little brighter, and it tapped again. "Number, I'm blamed for everything. I'm actually protecting those who come here. But when he takes people from the apartment, I have no power to help at all." I felt a chill in the air, as if the weight of the figure's words were settling in. "But what about me? Why now?" The figure paused for a long moment, then tapped out one final message. "One day it will be your turn, but for now, I protect you." I couldn't take it anymore. I packed up everything and left without a second thought. No warning, no explanation. I just had to get out of that apartment. I moved to a small house in a quiet rural city, far from the madness. But no matter where I went, I couldn't stop thinking about what might have happened if the landlord had caught me. What would he have done to me? Would I have ended up like the others? Would he have stitched parts of animals to my face too? Or worse, would I have been his next test subject? I spent hours wondering, imagining different endings. Maybe I'd have been dragged into his twisted experiments. Or maybe, just maybe, I would have gotten out alive, like I did this time. I was lost in thought one evening, staring out at the empty streets from my new front porch. It was a quiet neighborhood, no one around for miles. The air was still, peaceful even. Then, the doorbell rang. I blinked, confused. Who would be here? I opened the door, and there it was, a package, sitting on the welcome mat. I bent down to pick it up, my heart racing. It was unmarked, no return address. I didn't even remember ordering anything. I took the package inside and opened it. As soon as I did, a cloud of dark purple gas billowed out, filling the air. I coughed, the gas burning my throat. My eyes watered, and I stumbled back. The paper flew out of the box and landed on the floor. I grabbed it with shaking hands and read the words written on it. I can't let anyone find out, sorry friend. I couldn't make sense of it. Who sent this? What did it mean? Suddenly, everything went black. I woke up in a hospital room, the bright lights overhead blinding me. My head felt heavy, and I couldn't breathe properly. My throat was raw, and every breath hurt. The doctors told me I was lucky to be alive. The gas should have killed me immediately, they said. I should have never left my old apartment. I should have pursued my dream of owning a business. A valley of regrets soon surged over me. I knew there was no point. I was in a state where I would die painfully in 3 weeks, unless someone, anyone, could find a cure.